Ishmaran Academy, founder of the Northern Duke Research Society. That's right, she's a fan of novels of the Northern Duke genre. Her hobby is reading Northern Duke novels. Her specialty is memorizing all the information about Northern Dukes. And it wasn't until people from the Imperial City arrived that the heroine's beautiful fantasy was shattered. Because the people from the Imperial City wanted the heroine to divorce His Majesty, the Emperor. Clija was baffled. She had never even met the Emperor. How could she get a divorce when she wasn't even married? It turned out that the temple's marriage department had made a mistake. Now, Clija and the Emperor were already married on paper. The people from the Imperial City told her that according to the Empire's divorce procedures, the Empress would need to live in seclusion for 10 years after the divorce to eliminate her political power. For this reason, the current Viscountess Mezerin has been ordered to relocate to Likai Island. In other words, for the next 10 years, you will be unable to return to your territory. If her father hadn't stopped her, Clija really would have wanted to beat the people from the Imperial City to death. Now, Clija's beautiful fantasy had come to a complete end. Clija thought about her father. 10 years ago, he had performed meritorious service in the war, earning the title of Viscount and the Ishmaran Plains as his territory. He had no interest in the conflicts between nobles. Born to serve the imperial family and die for the imperial family, he was a true knight. But Clija was the exact opposite. She had her own life plans. Suddenly, a firebird named Kukis appeared. It told Clija, although you're bound by human rules, you are also part of the great shackle that controls the flow of this world. Clija retorted that Kukis had been saying this nonsense for so many years that she couldn't be bothered to listen anymore. So, for the sake of her own ideals, Clija decided to go to the temple to settle the score in person. And while she was at it, see her husband's face for herself. At night, Clija was already prepared for her trip to the Imperial City. But her father had long been waiting for her. Her father ordered that if she could defeat him, the Red Lion of Ishmaran, he would let her leave. She defeated him in an instant. Nothing more to say. Her father couldn't help but marvel. His daughter's fire rune had been raised to the highest level. Viscount Isaac Mezerin did not pursue his daughter. He agreed it was time for her to go out and see the world. Clija, muttering all the way about seeing her husband's face, rode her horse for 3 consecutive days. Finally, they arrived at Mueda, the Empire's largest commercial city. It was a checkpoint city. The horse, which had been starving for 3 days, actually wanted to eat meat. It turned out this was no ordinary horse, but a beast hybrid. Clija told it to endure for now. It would be troublesome if it were discovered. Then she began to feast heartily herself. While eating, she remembered what her father had said. Running away from home is tough. Clija, who had been starving for 3 days, could only admit that she had underestimated the hardship. Clija looked at the bird, wondering whether to share some with Puff. After a thought, Clija decided against it. She was afraid of exposing their identities. A long time ago, when dragons ruled this land, it was a hybrid of a dragon and an earth drake. Although it was in existence almost like a divine beast, in the form of a horse, it was a carnivore. Moreover, it could traverse the entire continent in a week. It was so precious and powerful that it was never seen outside the imperial family. The horse next to it didn't understand why it wasn't eating grass when it was hungry, but was just neighing wildly instead. And what Puff wanted to eat was meat, but it could only rear up and neigh to the heavens in the stable. Back then, Puff was found by Clija on the battlefield. Clija took out some meat jerky and successfully brought Puff home. In Mueda, the largest commercial city of the Persa Empire, there was an entity that ruled it, a name sometimes more powerful than the imperial family, with a reputation higher than the Creation Temple. That was the Toma Corporation. This large enterprise, which controlled the Persa business world, was run by a young man. The man was the founder of the Toma Corporation, Toma Icon. When Toma came to the stable, he noticed something. It turned out he saw the haggard-looking Puff. The man explained to Toma that this horse was entrusted to them by a guest. Toma told the man to investigate the owner of this horse. Toma knew with just one glance that Puff was a beast hybrid, while Clija was sleeping at night. 2 men calling themselves the Legends of Mueda, known as the Dark Knight Brothers, snuck into Clija's room. The reason they dared to steal so brazenly was because they had added a lot of sleeping drugs to Clija's food. But they had no idea that Clija was already awake. The 2 of them ended up getting beaten up severely by Clija. Clija told them to confess everything. Faced with Clija's intimidating presence, the 2 had no choice but to kneel, beg for mercy, and tell the truth. They even stated their motto. They believed there was nothing in the world they couldn't couldn't steal. The reason Clygia was immune to the sleeping drug was because her aunt Lance was a master of pharmacology. Because she was so fond of Clygia, she had put her through resistance training with exquisitely adjusted doses, raising Clygia to a state of being immune to all poisons. Clygia explained that their sleeping drug had no effect on her at all. The two had been thieves their whole lives, but now they'd run into a cheater. How were they supposed to steal from her? To save their lives, the two tried to play the sympathy card with Clygia. Clygia gave them 10 seconds to take the money and leave. She figured that since they hadn't shed blood, their lives must not be easy either. This could be considered their price to pay. In fact, everything the two said was a lie, because liars never speak the truth. But they were moved by Clygia's words and planned to wash their hands of their thieving ways. Just then, Clygia discovered another person hiding in the shadows. Seeing that he had been discovered, the mysterious person immediately fled. The man spying on Clygia had been sent by Toma. The man reported what happened between Clygia and the Dark Knight brothers. He also said he was discovered as soon as he revealed himself, so he hurried back. Toma confirmed that Clygia was a rune user. Toma planned to meet Clygia in person. 20 years ago, the continent of Asha was being consumed by the ambitions of Servia. With their destructive spiritual power, the Servian imperial family swept across the empires and duchies of the entire continent, slaughtering and plundering at will. Finally, just as Servia was about to conquer the continent, the Persa Empire, led by the commoner knight Isaac Mezerin, successfully reclaimed the southern part of the continent. He was granted the title Red Lion of the battlefield. This was the beginning of the counterattack and triggered a fierce war between the two empires of Persa and Servia. In the 9th year of the war, starting with the Great Battle of the Carian Plains, the situation was completely overturned. With just one hand, he personally beheaded all members of the Servian imperial family, unified most of the lands on the continent of Asha, and ended the war. The person who did this was the 16-year-old crown prince, the sole ruler of the 5 realms continent, the 4th emperor of Persa, Jan Persa. The youngest emperor to ascend the throne, he stabilized the situation on the continent of Asha, which had been chaotic due to the war. Unknowingly, 10 years had passed. When he was suddenly informed that he was married, he was in a very bad mood. In fact, the documents showed that he had been married for 3 years. Persa held back his anger and told them to cancel it immediately. The man explained that the marriage department is, in principle, under the jurisdiction of the temple, so the imperial family cannot interfere. Behind that upright and strong facade, his true face was that of a temperamental psycho. Persa told Milshur to prepare. He was going to see the head of the temple in person. The man is the emperor's aide, Count Owen, Milshur Owen. He seems to be a bit of a goofball. Actually, the head of the temple emphasized that it was impossible. All documents related to the imperial family, such as births, deaths, and marriages, are managed by the temple. This is to prevent power struggles within the imperial family, a precaution to stop those in power from having even the slightest possibility of manipulating the imperial bloodline. For this reason, even with an imperial decree, the documents cannot be altered. Persa explained that it wasn't an alteration. The original document in the temple had an error. Once a marriage is registered, the correction period is 1 year. After that, the blessing is sealed. No matter who it is or for what reason, a blessed record cannot be changed. The director saw it was Persa's marriage certificate. He had even blessed it 3 times specifically. How Milshur wished Persa would just endure it. Persa planned to bring the person involved to testify, to prove that the marriage wasn't being annulled due to external pressure. But the man argued, how can we prove that the woman isn't being pressured or forced because of your majesty's change of heart? Faced with the man's doubt, Persa was furious. Milshur told Persa not to be rash. This was the temple. His Majesty the Emperor is the noblest person in this land. Therefore, the rules should be even stricter. As the High Priest of the Creation Temple, I state clearly to you that Persa's marriage record cannot be changed. On his way back, Persa was already thinking about how to change the state religion. He felt they had too little respect for the emperor. Bardil told his royal brother that it wasn't like there were no other options. Bardil's suggestion was a divorce. Milshur hadn't even had time to confirm who the other party was. and told them it was the daughter of Viscount Mazarin named Clisia. The two brothers seemed shocked. In the end, Persa ruled out the divorce proposal, worried that the young lady would be left with a divorce record. Milshire was surprised that Persa would actually worry about someone else. Persa asked what the second option was. Bartle suggested, why not just get married for Real? In response, Persa told his younger brother to follow him to the training grounds. There are two main types of magic used in the Persa Empire. One is sorcery, which uses rare minerals called magic stones as a medium and is activated through elaborate formulas and calculations. The other is rune magic, which involves directly absorbing natural energy into the body. As for sorcery, anyone can use it as long as they have magic stones and formulas. Therefore, it has become widespread enough to be used conveniently in daily life. Rune magic, however, can only be mastered if one's constitution and affinity are compatible. So it is a power that only a few people can use. And in Persa, those who excel among rune users are called runites. And Persa is the only person on the continent who can use all 5 rune attributes, and the sole ruler of the 5 realms continent. Persa told his younger brother to go in person and inform the daughter of Viscount Mazarin about the divorce. 2 weeks later, at the Viscount Mazarin's residence, Bartle hadn't expected his older brother to be so lenient with Isaac Mazarin. Not only did he not punish the arrogant commoner for refusing to serve as commander-in-chief, he even bestowed upon him a territory and a title. Puff was so hungry it had torn down the meat jerky shop and began to feast in front of everyone. The passers-by were shocked to see a horse eating meat. Clisia told Puff to explain itself. Puff had no choice but to claim it was suddenly so hungry that it started eating without realizing it. Toma's butler asked Clisia if they could have a word. Clisia was brought in. She had been trying to hide Puff's abnormal behavior. It turned out Puff had such a huge appetite because they had put too much appetite stimulant in the beast hybrid's water. But they hadn't expected it to tear down the shop. Clisia asked the man if he was the owner of this shop and how she should compensate him. Toma's butler explained that the meat shop was an affiliated store. This was the headquarters of Toma Holdings. The butler found an excuse to call for Toma. Toma greeted her very politely. When Clisia saw the man before her, she was captivated. Deep black hair and red eyes, and that somber black suit. Clisia shouted out, "Northern Duke." Toma also seemed shocked to hear Northern Duke. The president of Toma Holdings, Toma Aiken, a genius entrepreneur with a Midas touch. Although he was a commoner by birth, he was famous because his assets exceeded those of many high-ranking nobles. But his real name was Eugene Haniel de Servia. He was the last prince of the Servian imperial family, which had been wiped out by Persa 10 years ago. He was also trying to revive Servia, the leader of the rebel force, Xania, and he was also the master of the Carian Great Plains in the northernmost part of Servia, the lord of the Cassar family. In other words, a true northern duke. Eugene saw through Clisia's disguise in an instant. He confirmed that she was a noble from somewhere. Eugene didn't expect her to actually know who he was. If anything went wrong, Eugene planned to dispose of her on the spot. Clisia came to her senses and told Eugene to forget what she had just said. Eugene thought Clisia was trying to cover up and play mind games with him. Clisia then continued to ask him about the compensation amount. Eugene took out an abacus, intending to calculate it properly. The total was 50,000 gold coins. He told her not to worry. The stable would cover 10 for her. The final amount was 45,000. Clisia said she didn't have cash and could only withdraw money from the Imperial Bank. Eugene said that since he didn't know Clisia's identity, he intended to take her troublemaking beast hybrid. It was sufficient as collateral for 50,000. Clisia realized he knew Puff's identity. Clisia then realized that they also knew she wasn't an ordinary commoner. Clisia could only agree awkwardly. Eugene said he was also going to the capital and suggested Clisia come along. Once in the carriage, Clisia, in order to prevent an awkward atmosphere, once again said the words Northern Duke to Eugene. Eugene didn't know what she was up to. Was she trying to test him so blatantly? Clisia realized that Eugene might not know what a Northern Duke was, so she decided to spend the day teaching Eugene what a Northern Duke is. Eugene would come to deeply regret this decision. Question 1. The woman you love falls down in the hallway. Which of the following is the correct course of action? 1. Kill the architect who designed the hallway. 2. Kill the servant responsible for cleaning. 3. Kill the designer who made the shoes. Eugene didn't understand why he had to kill an unrelated person just because she fell. And what did this have to do with a Northern Duke? Question 2. The woman you love can't sleep every night. Which of the following is the correct course of action? 1. Kill the furniture maker who provided the bed. 2. Kill the maid who ignored her insomnia. 3. Kill the tailor who made the pajamas. Why are all the options about killing people? Is there something wrong with his personality? Question 3. Narrative type. The Emperor, in order to steal your fiancée, orders you to a battlefield where death is certain. What would you do? Since it's an imperial order, you should follow it. What else can you do? Clisha asked 3 questions, and Eugene couldn't answer a single one. So she concluded that Eugene was not a Northern Duke. Eugene was left speechless. Clisha told him, powerful, and most importantly, peerless in bed. Eugene wondered if this person was mentally ill and said he wanted to change the subject. Clisha told him changing the subject was impossible, claiming to be one of the foremost experts in the field of Northern Dukes. From Weta to the capital was about 24 hours. Eugene would remember this day as the longest journey of his life. Finally, they arrived at the capital. Eugene felt he was finally free. Afterwards, he still politely helped Clisha out of the carriage. Clisha explained shyly, using a honey trap doesn't guarantee a pass. At most, you get 60 points. You need to score 90 to be considered a Northern Duke. Eugene just wanted to get away from her now. After saying goodbye, Clisha took her leave. The butler was surprised she had mentioned the Duke and asked Eugene what had happened. Eugene said, just leave that woman alone. It was because Clisha's supply of Northern Duke material was endless. Her mouth didn't stop moving day or night. Eugene's ears were about to bleed. He couldn't help but complain about her. Does she think she can do whatever she wants just because she's cute? Suddenly, Eugene noticed something. Clisha had also finally arrived at the temple. A man told her that free food was not distributed here, but at the square in front of the imperial city. It turned out he had mistaken Clisha for a beggar. She introduced herself as from the territory of Ishmarin, the daughter of Viscount Mezerin, Clisha Mezerin. But the man had no idea what the Ishmarin territory was and told her to go get her free meal first. It turned out the priest was deliberately avoiding meeting Clisha. Right now, besides being hungry, Clisha couldn't be bothered with anything else. She thought of going to the bank to borrow money, but found the business hours were from 9 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, closed on weekends and national holidays. And the current time was 5 in the afternoon. The heroine now had no money and no mount. It was a true picture of destitution, but she was glad that her most precious sword, Kret, was still with her. Yes, with Eugene. Clisha felt very ashamed. She believed Eugene had deliberately used his good looks to distract her and take her most precious sword. At this time, Emperor Persa, being very handsome, wanted to go inspect the lives of his people. Milshire told him not to conduct a private inspection and to please follow the normal procedures for a tour. Persa really didn't want to, thinking it was a huge hassle. The woman was the Emperor's guard knight, Clarence Rogan. She had a good suggestion, so she took out a disguise potion that could change one's body pigmentation for a day. After taking the potion, Persa's original blonde hair turned brown. Satisfied, Persa began his inspection. It had been 10 years since the end of the war. Persa had revived to the point where it was hard to find any traces of the war. But now other problems had appeared. He didn't expect a prosperous country to still have starving citizens. Persa didn't understand what these officials were doing. Suddenly, Clisha appeared from behind Persa and told him, they're not giving out food here anymore. Persa could tell with a single glance that Clisha was a high-level fire rune user. And she was a woman disguised as a man. In the entire empire, there were fewer than 10 high-level fire rune users. Persa wanted to hire Clisha. Clisha immediately agreed. As long as there was food, she would do anything right now. Afterwards, the two reached an agreement. Of course, both of them lied to each other to hide their identities. Persa pointed at a man. He's cheating on his wife, suspected of adultery. Let's chase him and catch him in the act. Clisha didn't expect the opportunity to prove her worth would come so quickly. Clisha and he chased after him. The man also discovered them in a dead end. He used a wind rune to escape. The two were shocked to see this. Clisha then grabbed Persa and chased after him, arriving at a bronze plaque engraved with 4 sevens. The dark auction house, Lucky Box. This was an illegal black market. Whatever the customer wanted, they could get. And with an incredible 99 completion rate, it became the largest brokerage guild in the empire. The document the man was desperately protecting was actually a plan on how to assassinate Emperor Persa. Clisha didn't understand why Persa wouldn't let her go in. Persa didn't want to involve a civilian because this matter was very dangerous. He told her to go back quickly. Klija was worried about Persa. She felt that if it was dangerous, then he shouldn't go. She said that a delicate detective like him shouldn't be wandering around alone. Persa laughed happily. He didn't expect this commoner he had just met to be so interesting. Persa patted Klija's head and said he would definitely treat her to meet next time. After that, Persa successfully snuck inside. The host introduced the main event of the night, something concerning a crisis in the Empire and related to the Emperor. This piqued the interest of the fearless Persa. Klija was still very worried, thinking Persa was very frail. So she teleported behind Persa. Persa was dumbfounded. Klija explained that she was too worried about the detective, so she followed him. Just as the host introduced a slave boy, Klija, full of a sense of justice, appeared in the center of the auction hall like a goddess descending from the heavens. She shouted at them, "Slave trading is against the laws of the nation. You scum." The host, in a panic, told the bodyguards to seize her. Klija told the child not to be afraid, that she was here to save him. The child actually told Klija not to meddle in his business. Klija wouldn't listen. She knocked him out directly. Persa knew he didn't need to help at all, because a high-level fire rune user was incredibly destructive. Klija couldn't help but marvel that her own destructive power seemed a bit too great. The awakened slave boy was very annoyed. He pointed at Klija and thought, "How dare she interfere with me?" Persa saw the slave boy's true identity. Suddenly, several mysterious figures appeared beside the slave boy. Persa told them to just take him away. Klija was very confused. Persa tells her it's Mel. Mel is a type of magic. It's similar to runes, but a bit different. After saying this, he left, telling her to take care of herself. Klija, who had just reacted, broke down. She felt like she had been tricked again. The mysterious person thought that they had almost gotten into trouble this time, because this operation was too reckless. If the Sultan found out, he would definitely be furious. The slave boy's name is Sita. He had originally planned to find his brother in this country, but two inexplicable people showed up. His subordinate explained that the one with brown hair is the Emperor of Persa. Sita felt that it was no wonder he looked a bit familiar, but he thought it was better to return to his country first. Sita recalled the red-haired person. She made him feel very comfortable in his heart. The guard didn't know either. He only knew she was a rune user, and her gender was female. Sita took out the mel he wore around his neck. He activated its magic power, which restored him to the form of an adult man. That night, Persa was furious that something like a slave auction could happen in the capital. He thought they didn't know what they were doing. Milshire felt like he was about to be driven crazy by Persa. It turned out to be Bartil. He had told them not to interfere in these matters. Bartil also hadn't expected that it would cause such a huge commotion today. Bartil discovered a product that had fallen on the ground, an empire in crisis product. On it was written, "The Servian Empire destroyed by Persa." The remnant forces, which were thought to have been completely wiped out, had survived on Persa's land. 10 years later, they were launching another attack on the emperor. Bartil really wanted to see what kind of expression his brother would have when he saw this. The nobles and vassals who survived the war with Persa formed an organization called Genya. They hid in various places in Persa, biding their time, waiting for the day to reclaim the glory of Servia. 10 years have passed since the end of the war. It's inevitable that some people would become impatient, but surviving the war meant they had never seen Persa with their own eyes. Eugene took this opportunity to go sightseeing at the imperial palace. After all, Genya would also be trying to find a way to infiltrate the palace. Klija hadn't eaten for several days. She had thrown everything away. She seemed to feel that the capital was truly a cold and cruel place. Suddenly, a boy holding food handed it to Klija. Klija then felt that the capital had become so warm. Klija didn't expect the capital to have so many homeless people. Wasn't it said to be the wealthiest city? The boy explained that the capital is a city personally administered by His Majesty the Emperor. The relief aid is the most generous. If you're lucky, they'll even give you a job. The boy was very grateful to His Majesty for caring about the feelings of commoners like them. Suddenly, on the child's happy face, but he was insulted by thrown food scraps. It turned out to be some nobles who looked down on the poor. Klija was furious, and the consequences were severe. As a result, the man was beaten black and blue. Klija also didn't expect the capital to be so strict. The guard came over after just a small fight, but when Klija wanted to escape, no one could stop her, except for fainting from hunger. Klija was almost at her limit. The bread the child gave her wasn't enough to fill her stomach. Having no choice, Klija had to reveal her identity. The man didn't make things difficult for her. He asked her to show her identification card. Klija smiled happily and said it was stolen. The result was that Klija was treated as an illegal immigrant who seemed to have violent and antisocial tendencies. And on the grounds that she was not mentally sound, she was sentenced to 3 months of detention. That night, the people locked in the prison suddenly started moving in an orderly fashion. It turned out they were the Genius Servian assassination squad. They used horn mushroom powder to knock out the guards. And she didn't expect horn mushroom powder to be so popular in the capital. She had just been pretending to be asleep and had fooled the assassins. Klija originally planned not to get involved, but when she heard they were going to assassinate the emperor, she certainly couldn't just sit by and do nothing. Klija, who had run out, was shocked to find not a single guard in the imperial palace. At this time, Persa was questioning Bartil about the auction. Bartil told him to calm down. He gave him a piece of information, telling him to go and see the inner palace's courtyard. Persa arrived at the palace only to be met by the Genius Servian assassination squad. Persa was furious, not expecting that Bartil would actually use him. Suddenly, a purple halo of light appeared around Persa. The man explained that this was an item that restricted the use of magic. Persa thought they were underestimating him too much. The assassination squad wasted no words and all charged forward. They didn't expect Persa to be so strong. He broke free from the restraints with brute force, used the power of the water rune, and wiped them all out. The knights arrived late. Persa ordered them to capture Bartil. At this moment, Klija and Bartil met. Bartil told her that the way to escape the prison was to the right. The direction she was heading now was towards the inner palace. Klija explained that she was going to the inner palace to protect His Majesty's safety. Then she turned and ran. Bartil felt like he had seen her somewhere before. That's right, it was a young lady of Mezerin he had seen before. Klija had already arrived at the imperial palace. How could she give up the chance to see her fiancé's true face? Klija saw the emperor. Klija could finally see her fiancé. Persa sensed that something was wrong and used the ice rune, but he didn't find anything. This made Persa wonder if he was being too sensitive. It was Eugene who saved Klija. Eugene didn't understand how she could be here. Klija began to suspect if Eugene was dressed like this to assassinate the emperor. Having no choice, Eugene had to go against his own wishes and ask Klija, how many points for the Northern Duke this time? Bartil, who was nearby, heard their conversation and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Suddenly, while Bartil wasn't paying attention, Klija vanished on the spot. Persa found Bartil. He didn't expect him to be hiding here. He told him he'd better explain, or he would get a taste of an electric shock. Bartil himself had pretended to betray the Empire and personally made contact, and he egged them on, pretended to tell them the weaknesses, and had all the elite personnel leave to attack an empty headquarters. Bartil didn't forget to praise himself a bit. So you were the one who led the assassination squad to the inner palace courtyard. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the sky. Bartil must be deader than dead now, right? Klija, who had run out, teased that Eugene was a 95-point Northern Duke. Klija then began to ask if her sword was with Eugene. Eugene told her that the sword was well preserved, and he told her to go back with him first and get cleaned up. Eugene's secretary, Luke, told Eugene's godfather, Homar Eichen, that Bartil's betrayal was fake. The Eichen family, although Eugene's fake identity is known to the outside world as the so-called Toma Eichen. In fact, the source of funding for the Toma Corporation, famous for Toma's achievements, is also a vassal family that has long managed Servia's secret funds. At that time, for the sake of reviving the Servian Empire, he wanted to kill Jan Persa with his own hands. Afterwards, Eichen revered Eugene, the sole heir of Servia, as his monarch. A man told them that Lord Eugene had brought a strange young lady, took her for a bath, and then let her go to his room. When Eichen learned of this, he questioned Luke. Luke told him to calm down, thinking that Eugene, being in the prime of his youth, could also fall in love once in a while. Eichen began to doubt whether he had misjudged the man. Klija, after her bath, became incredibly beautiful and charming. Eugene began to doubt his own eyes. He shyly returned the sword to Klija. Klija asked him to accompany her tomorrow to do some things. First was to get back her stolen identification card. Klija went to the bank only to find that her identification card was useless. The woman told her that on the citizen registry of the Persa Empire, there was no such person as Klija Mezerin. The woman could only help her search again, but she found a name, Klija, Mesirin de Persa. so they were shocked that she was a member of the royal family. At first, Eugene thought there might be a mistake in the documents. Only 2 people have the surname Persa, unless one becomes the empress. Clisha was shocked as to why it wasn't corrected. Because Clisha was the empress, she was invited to the Gikrit Bank's VIP room. The woman told Clisha that withdrawals from the requested trust account were not possible at the moment, because the product you participated in has a 20-year term. According to the terms here, it can only be withdrawn after the beneficiary turns 30 or if the trustor, Isaac Mazarin, comes in person. As a special addendum, a condition was added that under any special circumstances, the beneficiary cannot terminate the contract midway. The woman also told her that if she really needed money, she could use the deposits in her spouse's account. Clisha said that using the emperor's money is the same as using the country's money, isn't it? The woman explained that His Majesty the Emperor's personal assets under his name are separate from the imperial budget. The conclusion is that His Majesty's assets are already vast, so even if she took out money to use, it shouldn't be a problem. Afterwards, Clisha came out with a black card. This shocked Eugene. The black card was rumored to be an ultra-rare high-level VIP card that could be used without limit across the entire continent. There were less than 10 of them, including those in the Persa Empire. Persa was furious. A divorce procedure was this complicated. Having no choice, Persa could only have them bring the young lady of Mazarin over. Milshire told him that the young lady had reportedly run away from home and was missing. He would have to find her himself. Persa cursed at his subordinate and sent him away. Persa could only search based on the description. First, 21 years old, red hair, uses the fire rune. Persa seemed to know who it was. Milshire found Bartil and asked him to describe the appearance of the young lady of Mazarin. He mentioned her prison uniform, which had 3,358 written on it. Milshire thought he was joking. Bartil told him he wasn't joking. As a result, Milshire and his men really found her. Prisoner number 3358. But she was already wanted with a bounty of 500,000. The noble hooligans were bullying the child again, but she was sent flying by the corner of Clisha's clothes as she rushed over. She asked the child if he still recognized her. At first, the child didn't recognize her, but upon a closer look, he did. Clisha took out money and a letter of introduction, telling him to go to Ishmarin. If that didn't work, she told the child to become a servant at the Mazarin mansion. She then told him to wait there for her to return. After saying goodbye, she sent the child off. Clisha took out the black card, indicating that she could now go and pay off her debt. Eugene now knew many of her identities, but he just didn't know what her relationship with the emperor was. What Eugene was thinking now was how to keep this woman. Eugene brought it up again. I'm over 90 points now, right? You said back then that you'd be willing to be kidnapped or imprisoned. How about it? Is that permission still valid? Clisha said no with her mouth, but in her heart, she was already blooming with joy. Eugene explained that he didn't have that intention. He just wanted to get to know her on a deeper level. But the barrier of status was too high, so there was no other more suitable way. Hearing this, Clisha immediately left. Eugene didn't expect that even this wouldn't move her. 21-year-old Clisha Mazarin. After experiencing 10 years of life on the battlefield, she lived a peaceful life in the distant Mazarin territory. She graduated from the rune department of Ishmarin Academy. Through the activities of the Northern Duke Research Club, she had read over 100 Northern Duke novels, yet she had no romantic experience whatsoever. This made Clisha feel like she was going crazy. Clisha had just mustered up the courage to say that she was already a married woman. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew a piece of paper onto Clisha's face. Clisha was shocked to see that she was wanted. A young woman with long red hair and amber eyes. Prisoner number 3358. Currently on the run after a prison break. Other multiple felony suspicions are also under investigation. Special notice. Due to her considerable strength, citizens are advised to be especially careful. Imperial emergency wanted order. Bounty, 500,000 rule. The price of about 100 buildings. Clisha guessed that it must be the blondie's doing. Eugene thoughtfully draped a cloak over her, and he brought her to the capital's largest port, telling her he had prepared a ship. The reason Eugene did this was that he was worried she would be targeted by people with ill intentions. Moreover, Clisha was now a wanted criminal. Eugene gestured for her to set off immediately. Clijah said, "Is this the ship you were talking about?" Eugene was helpless. He raised his head and pointed for her to look over there. "This ship has the Empire's largest and most advanced horsepower engine. It can accommodate over 1,000 people, is equipped with hundreds of guest rooms, a banquet hall, a theater, restaurants, and other amenities. It's an ultra-luxurious sailboat belonging to Thomas Shipping. The Tabor Sonic." Clijah was truly impressed. Eugene said this was a journey specially crafted for the young lady. Clijah boarded the luxurious sailboat. It was her first time feeling the wind and waves of the sea. Then, with a snap of his fingers, Eugene immediately made her feel the luxurious treatment. Eugene told her that the Tabor Sonic was currently on an exclusive route officially licensed by the Persa Empire. So Eugene's purpose this time was to take her on a good trip and evade the royal wanted order. Clijah saw the place Eugene was pointing to. "Isn't that Floria? Rated by Persa Weekly as the #1 tourist destination to visit before you die, and also the #1 resort destination to go to after retirement." Clijah learned that she was on a honeymoon trip with a Northern Duke. Just thinking about it was exciting. It was no exaggeration to call this place a paradise on Earth. Clijah's first sensation was the heat of the desert. At this moment, a bare-chested man suddenly appeared. Clijah was stunned. This person was the 12th generation king of the Duchy of Floria, Andrew. Clijah hurriedly bowed. The king said their country didn't have so many rules. But for Clijah, this was indeed a very open place. Eugene was also good brothers with the king. Andrew, learning of this, realized this young girl had come with his brother. So he gave her a golden flower as a gift and said he would treat her with the highest honor here. Eugene thought her preferences were very specific, definitely black hair and red eyes. In reality, she was so single-minded that she wasn't picky at all. Clijah no longer held back. She wanted to know what scale of VIP treatment this was. Eugene interrupted her, suggesting they go to their accommodations first. He had also prepared new clothes for her. Andrew looked at them and seemed to think that Eugene was very attentive to her. Meanwhile, at the home of Viscount Mazarin, they received a message delivered by a maid. It said that an emergency arrest warrant had been issued for the young lady, with a bounty of 500,000 rule. It was said that last night, someone saw the young lady boarding a ship at the port with a suspicious man. Milshire didn't expect events to develop differently from what he had anticipated. Viscount Mazarin said he would also go along, because he was the one who let his daughter go. This time, he didn't plan to let it be. As a father, he had an obligation to know his daughter's current situation. Bartil, the captain of the Royal Guard, went to Ishmaran Academy. He knew about the relationship between Clijah and the Serbian prince. He also knew about the relationship between his brother and Mazarin. There must be something else between them. So he sought out the mathematics professor and president of the Northern Duke Research Society at Ishmaran Academy. He looked at the information recorded about Clijah. There were only 2 lines. That is, graduated from the rune department of Ishmaran Academy and founded the Northern Duke Research Society, an unknown group whose activities, research field, and even the meaning of its name had never been made public. Amber knew he was a member of the royal family, so she asked him bluntly about his purpose for coming here. Bartle explained that he came for research purposes. At this point, Amber asked him, brown-green, blue, black-red, gold, black-gold. How should they be combined? Before Bartil could react, the timer had already started. At this moment, Bartil was frantically pondering this question in his mind. Unsurprisingly, Bartil was eliminated. What kind of joke is this? Bartil thought her question might be flawed. Amber Corn. At 11, she laid the foundation for analytic geometry. At 14, she proved Fermat's last theorem. At 17, she ascended to the position of a sage. She is a well-known genius of the century. She rejected the presidency of the Empire's most prestigious society to stay in Ishmaran, a mere rural academy, because there was an academic group she was very fond of. Bartle felt that her question wasn't complete. Amber told him, "You don't even know the most basic of basics, and you want to join the Northern Duke Research Society?" But seeing his enthusiasm, she gave him another chance, telling him to learn the material well and then come back to challenge her. Amber told him that since ancient times, the door of truth has always opened for those who knock. Soon, following the directions on the paper, Bartil arrived at the Ishmaran Academy library. Bartil thought this academy doesn't provide any information to outsiders. It even has a closed and coded process for joining the group. For such an organization to be hidden in a rural academy like this made him more and more curious about this place. It turned out these were all novels about the Northern Duke. Just like that, Bartil quietly began to flip through them until he saw how to melt the Northern Duke's heart. And he was captivated by that crazy Northern Duke. Just like that, Bartil realized how ignorant he was in the face of pure academia. He also finally understood what Eugene had said about the Northern Duke back then. Just like that, Bartil forgot his own duties, wanting to become the Northern Duke himself. The Northern Duke, on the other side, however, was spending a wonderful evening. Clija was very happy at the Floria night market. The two of them seemed to have discovered something. It was a puppet show. The play was called The Legend of Ashalon. A long, long time ago, in an era when the world was full of monsters, Asha wanted to protect the weak and pitiful humans. So with his friend Kukus, he created land for humanity. This also meant that Asha and Kukus were on the side of humanity, and they gave humans a token of promise that could grant wishes. Clija said, hey, it's exactly the same as the legend of Persa's founding, although there are some differences. Eugene explained, the legend of Ashalon exists in every country on the Ashalon continent. It's the same where I'm from. Clija asked him, aren't you from Persa? Eugene immediately turned away and told her he grew up in a rather remote place. Eugene didn't expect that he would misspeak. Suddenly, Clija noticed that some people were fighting. Eugene explained that they were holding a martial arts competition. It's a tradition on this island, a game where you fight only with your bare hands, without using runes or weapons. You win by making the opponent surrender or pushing them out of the line. Hearing about a fight, Clija immediately perked up, so she wanted to have a go with the man on the stage. The man couldn't help but snort with laughter, thinking she should go play house instead. Clija, however, thought, is this cowardly lizard scared? The man wanted to retaliate, but he was sent flying several meters by Clija's punch. The man couldn't help but exclaim. This girl looked so frail, yet her strength was so great. At this moment, Clija found it very interesting. Because it was a game, she hadn't used her full strength. The man was mocked by the audience for not even being able to beat a woman. The man was desperate to save face, so he charged forward again. But the man fought dirty and actually used the wind rune. Luckily, Clija dodged it, but Clija's swimsuit was blown open. Just as the man was about to follow up with another attack, he was suddenly sent flying backwards. It was Eugene who saved her. Eugene told the referee the man used a rune, so that's a disqualification, right? But the referee said that according to the rules of martial arts, anyone who enters the ring is considered a challenger, and the two must fight to determine a winner. Meanwhile, Bartil had officially become a student of the Northern Grand Duke Research Society at Ishmaran Academy. Moreover, he was the first person to get a perfect score on the entrance exam since the society's founding. Bartil felt incredibly proud of himself right now. Bartil asked the president if she knew about the annihilation of the dukes and marquises. So, she had a student answer what should be common knowledge for Bartil. The annihilation of the dukes and marquises was an event that occurred in the third year of Emperor Persa's reign. His current majesty, after the Servian War, ascended the throne at the young age of 16. High-ranking officials and nobles who were dissatisfied with his constantly plotted assassinations and rebellions. In the end, His Majesty stripped 6 dukes and 11 marquises of their titles. That was the annihilation of the dukes and marquises. Since then, the Persa Empire has had no titles higher than Count. Bartil told her there was an exception. Only 2 families maintained their ducal titles. The emperor's maternal family, the ducal house of Lekanois, where His Majesty once served as lord, and the founding family of Persa, the Grand Ducal House of Bartil. Bartil hinted at who the master of the Grand Ducal House was. The girl answered that it is His Majesty the Emperor's own younger brother, His Highness Grand Duke Len Bartil de Persa. Bartil explained that he himself is the one and only Northern Grand Duke. The girl pointed out that he doesn't have black hair. However, Bartil had not yet realized the true essence of the Northern Grand Duke. At the same time, Clija's puff was feasting on chunks of meat. It only felt that its master pawning it here was a wise choice. A man to the side was calculating Clija's debt. Just then, another horse arrived. Puff realized, isn't this an old acquaintance of its own? Alessandro. Puff seemed to realize something. Viscount Mezerin appeared and asked the man why this horse was here. He never expected his own daughter would take out a high-interest loan of 50,000 using a magical beast hybrid as collateral. The man added that this collateral had caused them losses in management fees. So he decided to have it bear the debt itself and told the man, this fellow can make up for the losses you've incurred. The man didn't expect a horse could repay a debt. Viscount Mazarin explained that this is no ordinary horse, but a magical beast hybrid, a spirit among spirits that can easily pull multiple freight carriages. Sent to a remote coal mine, it should be able to support dozens of adults. Puff's good days were coming to an end. Meanwhile, the battle between Clijah and Eugene was about to erupt. When Clijah tried to use her legs, Eugene pressed them down. He told her she would be exposed. In the next second, Clijah seized an opening, and with a thud, he was asleep. The next day, as Eugene was asking her what she planned to do next, Clijah saw a ship flying a pirate flag docked in the harbor. Looking closely, she saw it was full of civilians. An uncle nearby told her that during the Servian War, the small countries surrounding Servia lost their territories. Those among them who didn't settle in Persa remained on the ship. No country is willing to accept refugees, right? Because they have no nationality. Only by flying that flag can they make real pirates leave them alone. The Princess of Floria, after understanding the situation, occasionally provides them with supplies. The Emperor of Persa accepted even the defeated Servians as citizens of the empire. He also said he would not drive away the people who had lived there before. So why are there still refugees? Eugene knew this was reality. Clijah stated, His Majesty Emperor Jean de Persa said that all people on the occupied lands are citizens of the Persa Empire. All citizens of the empire should be guaranteed a safe life. The uncle believed that no matter what the emperor said, they could not go back. So Clijah decided to have the northern boss sell her that luxury sailboat. Eugene said that sailboat is one of the few top-tier luxury sailboats, costing at least 20 million. Clijah said to max out the card. The ship's ownership was transferred. Eugene became Clijah's, and she announced to the refugees that it was a grace from Emperor Persa. The Tabor Sonic was also renamed the Jean de Persa. Eugene actually wanted to tell her that the emperor's account balance was being rapidly drained. But Eugene thought this was fine too. It was a legal way to mess with Persa. The royal treasury discovered that 20 million had suddenly disappeared from the emperor's account. Everyone knew which runaway empress had done it, but not a single person dared to report it to the emperor. At the same time, Viscount Mazarin finally arrived at the imperial palace. The finance officer told Myhill, and then gestured to him that the empress had swiped 20 million from the emperor. Myhill didn't know what they were wildly gesturing about and paid them no mind. Viscount Mazarin knelt and said, Greetings, your majesty. The two suddenly drew their swords on each other. Persa remarked that it had been 10 years, and his swordsmanship had improved greatly. When Persa was very young, Viscount Mazarin was his swordmaster. However, one day, when Viscount Mazarin wanted to leave him, Persa wanted to know the reason for his departure. Viscount Mazarin told him that his beloved was pregnant with their child, and that child is now Persa's wife. Viscount Mazarin also felt quite awkward. Persa and Mazarin finally understood why she went to Floria with the boss of Toma. So this was the reason. Persa believed that bringing her back from there would not be difficult, but the imperial throne could not be left empty. So he had Viscount Mazarin temporarily manage the imperial authority. Persa thought that letting his father-in-law manage the imperial authority couldn't be more fitting. A few weeks later, Clijah still hadn't received a reply from her father. After thinking it over, she believed it was impossible for her father to have left his domain. Suddenly, Persa found her and struck up a conversation. This left Clijah feeling somewhat flattered. She asked if they had met somewhere before. Persa said this was their first meeting. Internally, Clijah exclaimed how handsome he was. If the northern boss had the attributes of a black-haired, red-eyed northern Grand Duke, then this man had the typical attributes of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed emperor. Clijah couldn't resist the other's passion and began a long journey of dates. And she also told Eugene this news. Eugene was now full of jealousy. Clijah remarked that the northern Grand Duke could actually get jealous. Eugene asked her if she knew that gentleman's identity and the purpose of his visit. Clijah said he was a duke. Logically speaking, the empire has no dukes. Eugene felt that person was very suspicious. During the war, Persa had met Eugene. He told him that his mother, Ares, and his own mother were half-sisters with the same father. Therefore, the two of them are cousins. Eugene was furious and would never admit that Persa was his brother. What he wanted to do now was kill Persa. So Persa wounded his ankle. and told him to come find him again before the scar healed. Eugene awoke from the dream with a start, and his ankle still ached faintly. At this moment, Isaac Mezerin was visiting the Icon residence. Mezerin got straight to the point, stating that his son had seduced his daughter into running away in the middle of the night. Even as a father, he had to discuss it. Icon almost lost his composure. He hadn't expected his daughter to be her. Icon retorted that it was clearly his daughter who did the seducing. That boy Toma is so handsome and beautiful, yet he was taken away just like that by a woman who looks like a performing horse. What beggar, you bumpkin? That's a healthy kind of beauty. Afterward, the two bickered back and forth, seemingly unable to stop. Myhill, acting as the gold medal support, made Viscount Mezerin's lips curl into a smirk. It was said that Toma Icon canceled all of the Tabor Sonic's voyages, took a few crew members, and hastily set sail. He was inevitably mocked as a playboy. At the same time, the three had successfully met. Persa was the first to greet Eugene. Eugene didn't show any weakness either. Could this be the showdown between the Tyrant Emperor and the Northern Grand Duke, fighting for love? Suddenly, Persa's cough caught Clija's attention. Persa weakly told her, could she go buy him a bouquet of blue hibiscus flowers? Brewing the flowers into tea might improve his condition. After sending Clija away, the two finally began their confrontation. Persa joked, haven't seen you in 10 years. I didn't expect you to grow up so fast into a man who covets another's woman. Although Eugene really wanted to rush up and tear him to pieces, he had no way of defeating him before the founding festival. Persa told him, come find me before the scar on your ankle disappears. Have you forgotten? Eugene said the scar was deep and still the same as ever. Persa said that at that time, he had clearly controlled his strength and decided to see the scar for himself. Seeing this, Eugene immediately got up to leave, but Persa pursued him closely. Just like that, he pinned Eugene beneath him. At that moment, Clija happened to rush back. She actually stumbled upon such a sweet scene. Clija expressed her surprise. Are they? The two of them tried to explain at the same time, but Clija was already lost in her own fantasies, unable to pull herself out. That night, Clija was about to do something to Eugene. Eugene shyly remarked that she was barging into a boy's room at night. Clija was doing this because she felt her Northern Grand Duke seemed very lonely these past few days, so she came specially to relieve his fatigue. At this moment, Persa was outside the door, monitoring them. Eugene just felt like his arm was about to break. He couldn't take it anymore and decided to push her away, but unexpectedly ended up on top of her. Eugene's heart just pounded erratically. Clija told him this was the second time. It was the same when they met at the Imperial Palace. She told him he was steadily raising his Northern Grand Duke score. Persa seemed to understand their relationship now, so he decided to test her strength before he left. In the end, Eugene still kicked Clija out. When she turned back, she discovered there was someone in the house. Clija's intuition told her this person was very dangerous. She immediately cast a high-level fire rune. Persa had only intended to test her, not expecting her to be so reactive. So he cast a spell. This made Clija feel her body grow very weak. Eugene heard the commotion outside and immediately rushed over. Clija told him about the intruder, and she discovered she was still unable to use her rune power. Eugene told her that she had probably been hit by a spell called Limerus. Rune magic fundamentally borrows the breath of nature. Unlike spells that use magic stones as a medium, it generally cannot be interrupted. But Limerus can forcibly sever the spell. In other words, this was to block Clija's fire rune. The cast rune was forcibly cancelled, leaving you temporarily drained, but you'll recover soon. Clija was still a bit skeptical. After getting along for these past few days, Clija told him not to call her Miss anymore. They were friends now. So she told Eugene to call her CIA from now on. It's natural for ordinary people not to know about Limerus. Limerus is the simultaneous activation of dark, water, wind, fire, and earth runes, a technique that blocks the flow of runes by activating all 5 attributes. It requires 5 rune users gathered together to perform. But in Persa, dark and earth attribute rune magic have actually fallen into decline. Limerus has also been forgotten for several hundred years. There's only one person on the continent who can cast this advanced technique alone, the ruler of the 5 realms, Jean de Persa. Eugene never expected that Persa could actually use Limerus. In the morning, Persa approached them as if nothing had happened. Eugene exclaimed that this guy was truly shameless. Eugene told him that CIA wasn't feeling well today and it wasn't convenient for her to go out. Suddenly, CIA appeared cheerfully before them. Persa then also invited the Northern Grand Duke to go out and have fun together. Eugene didn't know what on earth he was plotting. Persa asked Klija if she knew Eugene Hunnell. Klija said that was the Prince of Servia. That weakling. He was clearly already captured. I heard the soft-hearted His Majesty let him go. My own father was very angry about it. The war back then was also started by Servia. Something about unifying the continent. Why did those madmen do that? As long as he's caught and eliminated, they won't cause trouble anymore. This truly made Persa laugh until he cried. Klija asked him if he was also a citizen of Persa. Persa did not deny it. Klija said that she couldn't call him Duke anymore then, because His Majesty the Emperor is a psycho. My father used to serve His Majesty. Whenever he mentions it, his face turns pale with fear. I can't imagine how much he suffered. The most terrifying thing was the Great Battle of the Carrion Plain. Persa told Klija, Viscount Mezerin, he is currently in the capital, Ziggurat. Did you know? Klija didn't expect that he actually knew her father. Persa said he has a very good relationship with him, so he wanted Klija to return to the capital with him. Hearing this, Eugene's body suddenly jolted. He suddenly remembered what Klija had told him last night, that they were friends, and Eugene hadn't stopped him, so he decided it was better for her to go back. He said he himself might have to stay in Floria to sort out some business. Klija was still a bit hesitant. Persa said, let's leave right now. Klija knew she had to go back someday, but she hadn't expected it to be so sudden. But looking at Eugene's dejected figure, she decided to say goodbye to him before leaving. She expressed her gratitude for all his help. Eugene also said goodbye to her, but it was hard to say anything. In Klija's heart, Eugene's significance was far from ordinary. A few weeks later, Bartil returned to the imperial city, only to find it in great chaos. That was because one day, the emperor and his party had accidentally drifted to a deserted island. Just as Persa was wondering how to get back, Klija told him this was today's breakfast. Persa was simply speechless. He told her to throw it away immediately. Instead of thinking about eating, they should think about how to leave this place. Only then did Klija realize they were on a deserted island. At this moment, a sailboat suddenly sailed over from the distance. The two were overjoyed that someone was finally here to help, but Persa seemed stunned. They were the gene to Persa. They provide indiscriminate and unconditional rescue to all who need help. We'll come rescue you right away. You should thank the grace of the Pirate King. Persa didn't pretend anymore. Not only were they impersonating him, they were also robbing in his name. Only then did Klija realize that the Duke before her was actually His Majesty the Emperor. Klija told him they weren't real pirates, but refugees who were kind people. Klija explained that she had used His Majesty's money to buy them the pirate ship. Persa felt as if the sky was falling. After Klija finished her explanation, she knelt down and took the initiative to admit her mistake. Klija explained to the Emperor that although she knew not everyone could live a good life, she still hoped there would be no people wandering around with empty stomachs. So she hoped His Majesty could spare her from the death penalty. Persa remarked that while she was a troublemaker, she was also responsible. So Persa carried her and boarded the ship, and he told them that he himself was their captain, Persa. Just like that, the Emperor of the Empire became the Pirate King. Klija and the others exclaimed that it was a perfect fit. At this time, a grandmother who could read palms planned to read her king's palm. When Klija heard palm reading, she was instantly interested and wanted the grandmother to read hers first. After careful consideration, the grandmother told her that her wealth line appeared suddenly. Klija exclaimed how accurate that was and wanted the grandmother to look at her wealth line. Persa told her to hand over the card first. Klija had no choice but to obediently hand over the card. The grandmother discovered her wealth line immediately broke. But as for her love line, she praised her for meeting a very good partner. Klija thought it was the Northern Grand Duke, but the grandmother said that after a moment of happiness, there would be a long shadow of loss. She didn't understand how she had become fated with someone who had already stopped breathing. Persa knew that the dying person was himself. The grandmother wanted to see the king's palm. Persa asked her, once fate is determined, can it not be changed? The grandmother described that everyone's destiny and life operate under a grand restraint. The predetermined future cannot be changed. Persa declined her offer because he did not believe in evil curses. He then wrote a letter to the nearby Bourbon base. Persa immediately gathered everyone for a meeting and told them that under his leadership, they would become true pirates. Meanwhile, at the naval base in the Bourbon Strait, the commander of the Poge Naval Base, Admiral Wilson Nero, saw the letter that had arrived. He couldn't believe His Majesty would give such an order. Persa's admiral, Wilson Nero, who had long guarded the Bourbon Sea, was a veteran general on the verge of a glorious retirement. He was also one of the emperor's most loyal confidants. The thing he hated most in the world was pirates, the parasites of the sea. Persa told him that a pirate ship would be coming to the Bourbon Strait, and he was to provide it with weapons. Wilson thought it was absurd. He didn't believe it was His Majesty's handwriting. Someone must be impersonating him. Suddenly, a soldier told him that about 150 meters away in the southeast strait, a pirate ship was approaching. It was estimated to be a 10,000-ton class, super-large sailboat. Wilson had the entire army prepare in a quasi-wartime state to let them witness the power of the Persa Navy. And just like that, the admiral immediately disarmed and surrendered. He even loaded the pirates up with many weapons. The naval officers and soldiers exclaimed that they were seeing a ghost. Wilson didn't dare to doubt his monarch, so he asked him, providing them with weapons doesn't seem like a good choice. Persa asked if he was reluctant to part with them. Wilson hurriedly explained that after looking around the ship, he found that there was no one who looked like they had been trained. Most of the people, even if holding weapons, would be unable to fight properly. They didn't even know how to operate them. Persa knew the Navy now had two problems. First, the Navy's current combat strength made it difficult to deal with pirates. Second, you are old and about to retire soon. So Persa thought of a way for him to solve both problems at once. That is to make you, Sir, the Pirate King. From now on, have him use that ship to plunder pirates. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. A pirate is a pirate. And so, the Genda Persa, flying both a pirate flag and a naval flag, became the pirates operating under the emperor's approval, known as the Asha continent's first privateers. They only destroyed and plundered other pirates, bringing order to the lawless seas. Once known as refugees, they became warriors of the sea. The era of the pirate king of the seven seas, the one-eyed Captain Nero, was about to begin. After that, they returned and began to prepare for the divorce proceedings. But they were immediately stopped by Myhill, who told them that getting a divorce now was probably not possible. The Daily Persa, Special Edition, First Exclusive Report, His Majesty the Emperor's Hidden Woman, overcame the barrier of status 3 years ago and fell in love. Gifts such as an ultra-luxurious magic sailboat. Where exactly did the funds come from? A statement that even an anonymous royal confidant claimed to know nothing about. Has the Empress of the Great Persa Empire finally made her appearance? Klija thought she could just correct the facts, that it was only a document error that put her in a state of marriage. Myhill told her this was a bit different from a simple gossip report. The marriage registry error was from 3 years ago. The report not only accurately pointed out that they started dating 3 years ago, but also cleverly argued that the imperial budget was used for a gift offensive. It must have been written by someone inside the royal family who knows about this, in order to tarnish her reputation. In this situation, if they were to hastily divorce or issue a correction, it would be perceived as the existence of a secret empress, who was hastily driven out after being discovered. This would only escalate the situation. Although it's just common gossip now, it might be difficult to handle later. Persa said that being the case, they could only wait for things to calm down in the capital. The president of Persa's largest corporation, Toma Corporation. To think he's such a young and handsome man. Eugene told her to stop with the flattery. After she signs, the land sale will be complete. The woman found it strange. The Lurut Mountains are barren and treacherous, without even any tourists. The Lurut Mountains are barren and treacherous, without even any tourists. When they first said they wanted to build a resort on that piece of land, the plan was to buy the cheap land and turn it into a tourist attraction. Although the price has risen 2 or 3 times since a gold mine was recently discovered, he still insists on the same location and the same area. To be precise, it's as if he must have that specific piece of land. Eugene asked if the lady had changed her mind about selling the land. The woman said she was just curious, not that she wouldn't sell. At this moment, Eugene noticed the pattern on the woman's handkerchief. The woman said she wasn't interested in the Church of Happiness. Eugene knew that although Persa's state religion was the Church of Creation, it recognized religious freedom. Could it be a cult? The woman also said that the people of the Church of Happiness were very important figures. Moreover, the last prince of Servia is one of the executives of the Church of Happiness. This left Eugene a bit stunned. Filled with doubt, Eugene decided to look for that Eugene from the Church of Happiness. Eugene had thought he was the hidden bloodline of the Servian royal family. In fact, Eugene's ultimate goal was not to revive Servia, but to take revenge on Persa, especially for his mother's revenge. The man told them he was the Eugene Hunel they were looking for. Seeing this, the real Eugene stiffened. Looking at his dyed hair, anyone could tell it was fake. This dealt a heavy blow to the real Eugene's pride. To think everyone believed this guy was him. The man said he could also prove it. Do you believe in a power that only the Servian royal family can use? Everyone in Persa knows that rune magic has 5 attributes: water, wind, fire, earth, and darkness. The dark rune attribute is a power that only those of Servian blood can use. The man said that although the dark rune can't ignite pillars of fire or cause lightning to strike from a clear sky, but it can manipulate and destroy people's minds, spirits, and memories. In a sense, it can be called the strongest human power. The man asked if this could prove that he is the Prince of Servia. Eugene asked Luke to step out for a moment. The man looked at him and realized that after the dark rune he just cast, he should be unconscious. But why is he so normal? Anyone can imitate the aura of a rune. The people of Persa have never seen a real, genuine dark rune. Suddenly, the man felt an intense, dark power. Eugene asked him if he couldn't even speak, if his heart felt like it was about to shatter. This is the true dark rune. Eugene then questioned the man. What does the Church of Happiness do? What is the Advent ceremony? And why pretend to be Eugene? Bartil and the others were also discussing the Church of Happiness that appeared out of nowhere. Myhill investigated and found that this Church of Happiness is a new religion that emerged a few years ago. Their motto is said to be to make everyone happy. They have built many temples throughout the empire and often provide services and donations. Because of this, they are quite well known among the populace. But Bartle wanted to know, where did all that money come from? Eugene told Luke that when this guy wakes up, he will forget what just happened, and he plans to express his intention to join the Church of Happiness when the guy wakes up. Eugene felt that this Church of Happiness was not simple at all. Meanwhile, Clisia was bored out of her mind. She couldn't even walk around freely. Persa told her to calm down. This is because the royal family is busy preparing for the National Foundation Day. Public opinion will also calm down after the festival. If you draw attention to yourself like that, there's no point in being in disguise. Sasha. Clisia finally realized that the detective from that time was His Majesty. She asked him if he had forgotten something. He still hasn't treated her to the meat from last time. The handmaiden told her that from now on, all 3 meals would be just meat. Clisia instantly felt that royal life wasn't so bad after all. So what exactly is National Foundation Day? According to ancient legend, it is the day the great Ashalon made a pact with humanity. It's Persa's grandest annual celebration. After the victory in the war with Servia 10 years ago, to celebrate the victory, a royal ball is held and distinguished guests from all over the continent are invited. The ball is said to last for a whole week. Far away in the secluded Ishmaran, Clisia's hometown, they never seemed to have experienced such a grand ball. She had also heard that for some young ladies, it was their lifelong wish to receive an invitation to the National Foundation Day ball. But for Clisia, who loved reading novels about the Northern Grand Duke, it was still lacking something. After finishing her meal, Clisia found that everyone was busy with their own things. Just then, Clisia saw an acquaintance. It was the president of her Academy Society, Amber. The 3 of them were also shocked to see her in the Imperial Palace. In the middle was Amber, president of the NGDRS. On the left was Helen, vice president of the NGDRS. On the right was Mona, secretary of the NGDRS. The executive lineup of the Northern Grand Duke Research Society. Amber introduced to Clisia. This is Bartil, a new member. It's thanks to him that we could hold our seminar in the Imperial Palace. Bartil had heard that Senior Clisia was the founder of this society. Clisia pulled him aside, wanting to know what he was up to. Bartil said it was a misunderstanding, explaining that he really was a new member now. Clisia had no choice but to ask some questions about the Northern Grand Duke. For Bartil, who was a top student, he answered them with ease. Clisia also acknowledged him as a new member. At this moment, Amber and the others saw that she was acquainted with the captain of the royal guard. Clisha wanted to explain. Bardil told them, Sir Clisha is now a knight apprentice in the royal guard. On the day of the National Foundation Day, Eugene also came to the imperial palace. The National Foundation Day's Imperial Banquet is an occasion where influential people are invited, regardless of their status or nationality. The representative of Persa's largest corporation, Toma Corporation, Eugene receives an invitation every year, but until now, he has always used the excuse of being busy with business and only sent a representative. So Eugene no longer needed to hide his true identity from Persa. King Andrew Floria also came here with Eugene. There was also the heir to the Sultan of the Eastern Desert Nation, FIA, Satana, the next Sultan of FIA. All the big shots were gathered together. The final main character, of course, was the Emperor of Persa. Persa raised the sacred sword Bliss, blessed by the gods. Then, using the water rune, he formed water droplets that floated near the ceiling. As light reflected off them like a chandelier, they looked just like jewels. This scene made even Eugene marvel. His water rune had reached such a level. It was now time for Persa's speech. But halfway through, he suddenly forgot his lines. So he simply stopped talking and declared the start. This directly stunned Myhill, who was standing by his side. At this time, Satana told his subordinate to be sure to look for that Sasha. After a thorough search, they didn't find anyone with an aura similar to Sasha's. Satana said that this time, he must find her and bring her back to FIA. Meanwhile, in the Imperial City Lecture Hall, the NGDRS Annual Seminar, Northern Grand Duke Books, sharing of the new book catalog and announcement of sales rankings, presentation of derivative works such as sculptures and paintings, progress report on translation and dramatization projects. A happy and fulfilling time was passing. One of the NGDRS's important annual events, a contest that new members who joined that year must participate in. All they had to do was write a free-form short story with the Northern Grand Duke as the theme. Every year, the winning work, selected by member vote, would get the opportunity for official serialization with a publisher collaborating with the NGDRS. Amber announced that since they had too many new members this year, they decided to add a special rule. It was a joint writing contest between seniors and juniors. A graduate senior from Ishmaran Academy and a current junior would form a team. During the National Foundation Day period, they would co-author and submit a short story. This year's winning work will be specially displayed in the NGDRS's Hall of Fame. Clisha was a little excited, because this way, she could show off in front of the new members. But things didn't go as planned. In the end, Clisha and Bartle were paired together. Clisha said her cute junior was gone. Bartle wondered, am I not cute? Since it had come to this, for the sake of her pride as the founder of the NGDRS, Clisha had to aim for victory. Just then, a handmaiden ran over and told Clisha that His Majesty had ordered her to attend the ball today. Afterward, the handmaidens who helped her change clothes couldn't stop praising her beauty. Clisha realized she had indeed become much more beautiful. The handmaiden then took out an item that His Majesty the Emperor had specially ordered and gave it to Clisha, because this year's National Foundation Day ball would be held as a masquerade. This was the first time Eugene had heard of such a change. Suddenly, the gazes of everyone at the ball converged on one spot. At that moment, Eugene's eyes widened. That beautiful young lady, that red hair. Satana also learned that the young lady before him was actually the Sasha they were looking for. Clisha felt like this was a pilgrimage to a holy land. The ball scene is an indispensable part of romance novels. The narrative from a debutante's first ball to a royal banquet is a classic of classics. The heart-fluttering moment when they hold hands, dance together, and their eyes meet is the moment they confirm their feelings for each other. So this was perfect material and inspiration for her writing contest. She had to take good notes. At this moment, Eugene came before Clisha and asked her for a dance. Clisha recognized him at a glance. The person before her was the Northern Grand Duke. Eugene was surprised she recognized him. Clisha smiled and said, "How could I not recognize my boss?" Eugene's heart felt like it was on fire. Just then, Persa suddenly appeared and told Eugene he was stealing someone else's dance partner. Persa said he was the one who invited Clisha. Eugene was angry, saying he was the one who asked first. The two of them argued endlessly over it, so Clisha took the opportunity to leave. Clisha noticed that ever since the two of them met in Floria, something fell off. She had confidently thought they would be very close. Since ancient times, friendships between men have been built in a rather rough manner. Clisha said she was a bit disappointed she didn't get to dance with the Grand Duke, but for the sake of his lifelong happiness, she had to make a concession. Clisha realized the black-haired, red-eyed Northern Grand Duke and the golden-haired, blue-eyed Emperor. Isn't this perfect material? First, she'd make the Emperor a woman. The Tyrant Emperor would be the female lead. But the Northern Grand Duke is gentle, and that Tyrant Emperor imprisons the Northern Grand Duke. A whole plot full of intense twists and turns. Clisha decided to go with this. Later, her partner, Bartil, found her, and he called Clisha's sister-in-law. This earned him a look of disgust from her, but Bartil didn't mind and asked her if she felt stifled living in the imperial city. Bartil knew she had never been out during a festival like this, so he invited her to look for material together. Clisha strongly agreed with his idea. By evening, Eugene and Persa had started a fight for real, because only the winner would get to dance with Clisha. By this time, Clisha had already snuck out of the palace. Just when she thought she could come out and have a good stroll, Bartil looked up at the rooftops. He said if they flew up, they could see a different view. Clisha said there was nothing much to see here. She realized this was clearly the slums. Just then, Bartil told her to stop. He told his sister-in-law that their target was right there, and he explained that it was a religious group called the Church of Happiness. They're likely the ones who spread the rumors about your romance with my brother. Their funding is unreasonably large. I'm preparing to investigate them thoroughly. They deliberately approach the destitute and those in urgent need of help. At first, they offer help for free. But once these people become believers, they are forced to donate all their possessions. In the end, they are exploited for their labor for the rest of their lives. It's a cult in the truest sense of the word. Clisha realized she was let out only to help arrest these cultists. At this moment, Satana also caught up with them. Clisha didn't recognize this person at all. Satana asked her if she remembered the auction. Only then did Clisha remember. She asked him how he grew up so fast. Satana said that wasn't important. He came this time to ask for Clisha's help. Satana wanted Clisha to be his wife. This statement left her at a loss for words. So Bartil quietly watched the drama unfold. Clisha didn't understand what on earth he was talking about. In Clisha's opinion, for him to fall in love just like that was too casual. Satana took out a necklace and told her this is called Mel. Just like how rune magic is used in Persa, in FIA, there's a power called Mel. It's a powerful magic that can manipulate time. It's also very dangerous and difficult to control. If not for a young and strong body, one cannot withstand this power. In FIA, only the Sultan can freely wield Mel and pass on this honor by transferring it to his heir. The problem is that after being passed down for hundreds of years, Mel's power has become too strong to be integrated into a human body. Among the Sultan's heirs, only I, that receive the complete power. But my condition is extremely unstable. So far, no matter what method we've tried, nothing has solved it. But miraculously, when I'm in contact with you, Mel stabilizes. If Mel goes out of control, a disaster beyond imagination will occur. Satana told her that an empress and a sultan's wife are completely different, because the sultan selects exceptionally capable women to be his wives. It is a duty to assist in state affairs. He told her there was more. You can live in luxury for the rest of your life. You can have any man you like. Clisha was a little swayed, but she couldn't just leave her country and family like this. At that moment, Satana suddenly became smaller. He told her that what she was seeing now was just his body, frozen in the past because of Mel. Clisha saw him. His smaller form was really very cute. Just then, Bartil noticed something. He grabbed Clisha and ran. Eventually, they got on a carriage organized by the Church of Happiness. They met many poor people in the carriage. Clisha didn't know what Bartil was thinking. Bartil explained that the Church of Happiness is very secretive. He had tried to make contact a few times himself, but one must be part of a family unit to be eligible. So Bartil asked Clisha to pose as a couple to infiltrate. Satana was confused as to why he had to go too. The three of them were a loss. And so, Clisha and Bartil argued all the way. Meanwhile, Eugene was ultimately defeated by Persa. Mezerin was very pleased, thinking his majesty had dealt with him with just one hand. Icon saw his smug expression and got angry just thinking about it. In the end, Eugene conceded defeat. Although Persa fought with one hand, he still felt it was a struggle. He didn't expect that after not seeing him for a few years, he had already become this strong. Myhill found His Majesty and told him that Bartil had submitted a leave request and then disappeared. This puzzled Persa. What kind of leave would he take during the National Foundation Day? In the document, his leave duration was unknown. The destination was Mount Kigu. The reason for leave was a society activity. It also specifically noted that he was traveling with Klija. Persa didn't understand why they were going there. Lurut Mountains, mining area number 31. Whenever some miners chatted, they would talk about a horse. They thought it was amazing that it could pull such a heavy cart all by itself. It was hailed as the continent's strongest steed. Right now, it was doing hard labor for the miners. Kukas finally found Puff using his mind. He asked it why it was here. Puff explained it was working to pay off a debt. 100 a day. Kukas asked why it wasn't by its master's side, and told it that its master was in danger. He told it that some uncontrollable factor was accelerating the flow of fate. He told it to hurry back to its master's side. You haven't forgotten what kind of existence that child is, have you? Suddenly, its leg shattered. With lightning speed, Puff escaped from the mine. Meanwhile, they finally arrived at the headquarters of the Church of Happiness. Bartil said they were his younger brother and sister. The three were the eldest, Lewis, the second, Shy, and the third, Sai. But the people from a Church of Happiness weren't stupid and thought they didn't look alike at all. Klija ended up weaving a complicated story about their parentage involving multiple partners. Bartil marveled at her, as expected of the founder of the NGDRS. Setana said he was speechless. Now he was posing as their younger brother to assist in the investigation. Bartil told him to just bear with it for a while. It wouldn't be for too long. Setana said he had previously asked Persa for assistance. He asked her if she remembered when he had infiltrated as a slave. At that time, I was looking for a criminal who had escaped from FIA to Persa. I infiltrated as a slave to use Persa's network to track his whereabouts. So Setana decided to cooperate for the sake of their emperor. Bartil didn't understand why FIA would send the Sultan's heir to personally infiltrate another country for a manhunt. Setana didn't answer. Instead, he changed the subject, saying that his previous marriage proposal was still valid. Klija had no choice but to tell him she was a married woman. Setana thought the two of them were a married couple. The two of them jumped up from the sofa, saying it was all a misunderstanding. Seeing that she was a married woman, Setana didn't insist. He decided to stay by her side to investigate the matter of Mel. Afterwards, the cultists told them to follow the path straight ahead to reach the most sacred place. Klija felt it was cold outside and wanted to get into the carriage to warm up. A cultist told her it was for external VIPs. Everyone else had to walk up the mountain this way. They even thoughtfully prepared ropes for them to prevent them from falling. Klija questioned Bartil, asking if he knew about this situation. Bartil said this was also unexpected. Just as they were going through all sorts of hardships, the cultists who had been waiting on the mountain told the newcomers that from this day on, they were forbidden from going out without permission. If they had to go out, they must apply for a permit in advance. They warned them that if they couldn't complete their assigned tasks, their supply of food and daily necessities would be restricted. Just as she was about to use a fire rune to teach them a lesson, Bartil stopped her. He urged her that now was not the time to use the fire rune. But Klija wanted to know what they would do next. Since they had already infiltrated, why not arrest them? Bartil thought it wasn't time yet. The victims here have all been brainwashed. Since the victims all joined the Church of Happiness of their own free will, it's very difficult to completely eradicate the Church of Happiness. According to rumors, on the last day of the National Foundation Day, they will hold an event at a secret location nearby. It seems they are planning to cast a curse on His Majesty. Bartil told her not to bluff. His Majesty's enemies aren't just Serbia. Because he reclaimed high-ranking titles through the Duke and Marquis annihilation case, he rebalanced the power structure. Furthermore, he implemented institutional reforms, taking over positions like royal retainers and administrators that were previously hereditary. Therefore, the nobles of today are gradually losing their means of controlling financial power. There are quite a few who resent this. On one hand, the Church of Happiness exploits the wealth and labor of commoners. On the other hand, they bribe nobles who are dissatisfied with His Majesty. That's why Bartil decided to launch a surprise attack during the event to curse His Majesty, to wipe out the Church of Happiness in one fell swoop. Bartil reminded her if she had seen their emblem. It's a representation of Ashalon. The Church of Happiness worships Ashalon. Eugene left the imperial palace afterward. Iken doesn't understand why he still wants to duel with Persa. Isn't he afraid of exposing his identity? Eugene told him his identity is already exposed. He said he wanted to meet the members of the royal family at this banquet and, while at it, confirm someone's identity. Iken seemed to already know who he was looking for. Although he really wanted to complain, he held it in. So he asked Eugene what the next plan was. Eugene said they are going to the headquarters of the Church of Happiness. He heard they have an estate on Mount Jiddu. On the last day of the National Foundation Festival, a secret event will be held at a location near that estate. It said they will use the power of Ashalon to curse the emperor. This news greatly shocked Iken as well. Eugene told him he has confirmed it himself. They're just frauds. But the key is the nobles gathered there who oppose Persa. Before taking down Persa, he needs these nobles on his side. Eugene said that even without a curse, he has ways to make his heart stop within 10 minutes. The Church of Happiness serves Ashalon, the progenitor of the continent. However, the existence of dragons has not been proven for thousands of years. The original owner of this land was Ashalon, and Persa is an illegitimate usurper and dictator. For those dissatisfied with the emperor, these words are undoubtedly the perfect excuse. The followers warmly welcomed this important figure and told him this is where the lay believers serve and live. Eugene found the conditions were worse than he imagined. Because it's a group harmful to Persa, he thought letting it be would bring benefits. He wondered if letting such evil run rampant can truly be called a benefit. Even if Eugene kills Persa, what will happen? Eugene's belief since childhood, until now, has only been to rebuild Servia and become emperor. It is just to take the throne for revenge. Just then, Eugene accidentally stepped on a young lady. Eugene hurriedly apologized, but the person he stepped on was actually Clisia. Both of their minds were in chaos, not understanding how the other could be here. Their hands instinctively held each other. They thought the other must have come here due to unavoidable circumstances. They considered it even, just as Eugene was happy to see Clisia. Clisia was pulled back by Bartil. In front of Clisia, he revealed Eugene's true identity, the Prince of Servia, Eugene Junel de Servia. Clisia asked the Grand Duke if he really deceived her. Eugene said he would have a chance to explain everything to her later. Bartil thought he must be up to some trick. Who doesn't know that the daughter of the Mazarin family is your enemy? But Eugene didn't think so. Bartil thought he was playing dumb. He thought what he was doing now was for the sake of avenging Servia. He asked if he had forgotten. The one who attacked the then unstoppable Servia was the Red Lion of the battlefield, Mazarin. Eugene told him he had no such interest. On the other side, Persa had Myhill tell him everything he knew about Ares de Larkanois. Although Myhill was shocked that the emperor would bring this up, he explained that Ares was the younger sister of the late Empress Athena. She was very close to the late empress. More than 20 years ago, she was taken to Servia as a hostage. She gave birth to a Servian prince, but he was just an illegitimate child. Persa told them he had met Eugene. At that time, he said something very strange. The only thing I hate is that my mother, who endured all kinds of humiliation with faith in her homeland until the very end, ultimately died at your hands. Whether the other guys live or die is none of my business. But what you did to my mother, I will never forgive. He clearly said that, but Myhill believed it was Servia that beheaded Lady Ares. Persa asked if this information was accurate, but Myhill wondered if what that person said was true. In truth, no one from Persa witnessed that tragedy firsthand, but Eugene was indeed there. So since both sides have different stories, they just need to verify it. He then had Myhill re-examine the records from 10 years ago. In the imperial year 612, the Persa Empire, before it could even enjoy the joy of the crown prince's birth, received a declaration of war from the Serbian Empire. At that time, the Serbian Empire was keen on expanding its territory, and its military strength was far beyond what Persa could match. The emperor and empress were faced with a difficult choice. Just then, the empress's only sister, the daughter of the ducal house of Larkanois, known as the Flower of Persa and the empire's treasure, Lady Ares, stepped forward. She volunteered to become a hostage in Servia. That was the imperial year 613. Thanks to her, the Persa Empire and the Serbian Empire reached a 5-year truce agreement. However, in 618, when the agreement ended, Servia's invasion began. The empress took command of the battlefield in place of the fallen emperor and fought against the Serbian Empire to the end. The empress's heroic struggle and the active combat of the Red Lion Knights delayed what was expected to be a quick conquest. Serbia felt a sense of crisis. In 623, the lady returned to her country, Persa, as a cold corpse. The devastated Empress Athena passed away after struggling for 2 more years. 2 years after that, in the imperial year 627, Persa declared the end of the war and ascended to the throne. Bartel told Clija what he knew and said that he always thought that fellow Eugene was acting out of loyalty to the Servian Empire. But now it seems he resents the Persa royal family for failing to protect Lady Ares. Bartel knew that his mother doted on Lady Ares even more than she doted on him and his brother. Clija found it strange, saying this was the first time she had heard of the existence of such an important person as Lady Ares. Bartel thought it's not just that information about the lady was hidden. He then asked Clija if she had ever come across any books or materials about the Servian War, perhaps at the Academy. Bartel explained that the Servian War is his brother's sore spot. All information and records are controlled by the royal family, and a gag order was issued to all relevant personnel. Probably even the younger ministers know nothing about that war. Clija didn't understand why it was hidden. Shouldn't it be a matter of pride? Bartel also couldn't figure out his brother's thoughts and said that the things he's hiding are not just 1 or 2. Anyway, Eugene is already under surveillance by the guards. He'll be caught soon. No need to worry. It's time to go back. Clija asked Setana what he was recording here. Setana told her he was recording the Mel stabilization phenomenon. He admitted that after contact with Clija, the aura of Mel calms down. Mel originates from the power of an ancient divine beast that controlled time thousands of years ago. It said that a human body was not originally meant to withstand it. The reason the Elfia clan can use Mel is because a very faint trace of the divine beast's blood flows in their veins. From this, Setana deduced that her ancestors also have the blood of a divine beast. So Setana asked about her mother. Clija said her mother passed away right after she was born. This piqued Bartel's interest, because the reason Mezerin refused the position of commander-in-chief back then was because of Clija's mother. Thinking about it now, besides knowing she died of childbed fever, it seems he never investigated anything else about her mother. So Bartel started asking about her mom. Clija said she wanted to go out for a walk. Clija seemed to get annoyed when people mention her mother. But more than that, Clija thought about Eugene. Even now, she couldn't believe it. I originally thought the Prince of Servia would surely be an evil and despicable villain. But the person she knows is far from the image she had imagined. Combined with how she saw him yesterday, that was an expression he had never shown in front of Clija before. The current Clija began to doubt Eugene. Could it be that everything he has shown so far was just an act? At this moment, Eugene's heart was also complicated. The nobles of the Church of Happiness were sitting together, celebrating the advent of the ceremony. But Eugene seemed to be thinking about something else. On the other side, in the royal library, Myhill and Sir Robert were organizing records. Of course, trying to find materials organized 10 years ago, just organizing them was heavy physical labor. Myhill knew, but he thought that His Majesty previously forbade reviewing the war records. The Duke and Marquis annihilation incident that eradicated the dukes and marquises back then, and the act of unhesitatingly wiping out the masterminds of the rebellion. His Majesty's actions, although they seemed somewhat ruthless, were understandable after knowing the situation and background at the time. But his persistent scrutiny of the Servian War, I really don't know the reason or his intention. I thought I could resolve my doubts by checking these records, but the situation was the exact opposite. Even when compared with the records of Servia and neighboring countries, all the contents were completely consistent. But the records showed that things like massacring civilians, capturing slaves, and looting were all done by the Servian Empire. Suddenly, Myhill discovered that on October 12, 626, an ambush squadron was completely wiped out in the Seal region. So he started searching through his own country's records, only to be shocked to find information about a squadron being completely wiped out near the Seal region around October 626. The record was completely missing on Persa's side. Myhill was puzzled. How could the record of such a large-scale battle on the main Seal battlefield be omitted? Robert felt this matter needed to be verified. Myhill remembered that the Persa army stationed in the Seal Mountains at that time was the Red Lion Knights. Mezerin recalled that there was indeed such an incident. At that time, His Majesty, who was still the Crown Prince, was marching towards Carillon. They received intelligence that the enemy planned to attack His Majesty along the Seal Mountains. So their southern Red Lion Knights went directly to the Seal Mountains to set up a defense. Myhill asked him why he didn't report the matter of eliminating the ambush team. But Mezerin said that they weren't the ones who did it. During reconnaissance, we sensed some unusual movement in the camp. By the time we returned, the ambush team was already completely wiped out. The only one who witnessed it all at that time was Klizia. So she told her father it was a secret. An older brother came here and fought. Mezerin asked if she knew what they looked like and what clothes they wore. But Klizia told her father that older brother was very handsome. This left her father and the aunt beside him somewhat speechless at the time. Of course, Myhill and the others were also speechless, because they were on the verge of learning the truth. But unexpectedly, the only witness's memory was confused, and they still couldn't get detailed information. Mezerin remembered that after that. Wasn't there the great battle of the Carillon Plains? At that time, the 16-year-old crown prince of Persa annihilated over 500 Servian soldiers who were preparing to march on Ziggurat in a single night. Just as they were discussing that major battle, Robert found the Servian record of the Battle of Carillon. At that time, Servia's losses were 3 infantry regiments, 2 rune knight regiments, and 1 royal cavalry regiment. According to the records, the total number of troops killed in action on the Carillon Plains that day reached 4,878. Robert thought this was nonsense. Even if His Majesty is the master of the 5 elements, to say it was 5,000 people. Myhill said they would start verifying it now. Myhill discovered that Servia's record was accurate. Comparing it with Persa's records after the Carillon Plains, Servia's loss of 5,000 men in that battle was the only way the numbers added up. This meant Persa's records were wrong, or they had been tampered with. At this moment, Robert told the 2 of them that he had found the records concerning Lady Ares. On the other side, Klizia and the others were led by the followers to a strange place. They were told, "Miss Shy, please go left. The rest of you, please go right." Bartel wanted to know why his second sister had to go alone. The woman smiled. "It's a great honor. Miss Shy has been chosen as the sacrifice." Klizia asked Bartel what a sacrifice was. It felt very dangerous. Bartel didn't know either. The woman told her not to refuse the glorious mission of being an offering to the great Ashalon. Hearing Ashalon, Klizia decided to become the sacrifice. Bartel asked her if she wanted to reconsider. Klizia said she must see it with her own eyes. Bartel reminded her, "The mission is important, but if there's danger, just cause a scene." Klizia thought this was excellent advice. Satana asked Bartel, "Can that blockhead really handle it?" Bartel explained, "She seems to have her own plan, so let's leave it to her. Although she looks a bit foolish, she has a unique talent for solving problems." At this time, Bartel and the others were taken to a place that seemed to be where explosives were made, and the scale was not small. Bartel knew it was time to start preparing for the arrest operation. Moreover, several of Bartel's units had been ordered to assemble. They should be on standby at the foot of Mount Jitta now. In the Imperial Palace, Myhill and the others felt it was incredible when they saw that document. He was also not sure if this was the truth or a lie. For both His Majesty the Emperor and the hidden Prince of Servia, it would be a very cruel story. Mezerin told His Majesty he had something to report. He pushed open the door, only to find it empty. Seeing this scene, the 2 were also helpless. Myhill told him, "His Majesty has gone to find his wife. I'm leaving the position of acting emperor to you, my one and only father-in-law. If you don't handle it well, I won't let you off lightly when I return." And so, everyone was gathering at Mount Jitu, at the northernmost tip of the Ashalon continent. Satana wondered if it would take several days to get up the mountain. With a loud bang, Bartel used a wind rune. He shot into the sky, telling him it would only take an hour. The followers who heard the noise quickly told them not to panic, but unexpectedly, they got hit squarely with a shovel. Afterward, Satana changed into a follower's clothes and began to evacuate the brainwashed commoners. At the same time, where Klizia was, she also heard the commotion outside. Klizia knew Bartel must have made his move, so the woman prepared to go out and check, telling the others to bathe her. Just after the woman left, Klizia told the remaining 2, Ashalon is very jealous, especially of the sacrifice. If anyone else's skin touches the sacrifice, they will be cursed. The 2 were terrified and quickly backed away. Klizia looked around. It seemed there was nothing, so Klizia looked at the change of clothes. She discovered, "Isn't this a bit too revealing?" On the other side, Eugene was still listless, because he needed to rely on this sacrifice to make these nobles trust him. But the image of Klizia lingered in his mind. Seeing her expression from before, he thought she must be very disappointed. He didn't know if they could meet again. She is the daughter of Persa's war hero. He thought she would definitely become his enemy. Suddenly, his mother's voice came from behind Eugene, asking, "Are you forgetting your mother now because of a woman?" Eugene whipped his head around to find nothing there. Eugene told the man beside him that there was clearly someone behind him just now. The man explained that because the sacred power of the altar is too strong, it often causes people to have some hallucinations. Rather than that, please look ahead. The sacrifice is entering. Eugene was shocked again. How could it be Clisha? And she was wearing revealing clothes, making it hard for Eugene to control himself. At this time, Clisha was already lying on the altar. Just as the man finished announcing the ritual declaration, he pulled out a dagger, wanting to begin the sacrifice. Clisha just thought they were a bunch of complete idiots. Before that, Clisha had already discovered some characters carved on the altar. The magic circle seemed to be a replica of a dragon summoning circle. Upon closer inspection, she found that those characters were just some meaningless scribbles. Secondly, some of the nobles above were seeing deceased people. This reminded Clisha of her aunt mentioning this herb, hallucinogen, a rare plant that grows in extremely cold, high-altitude regions. The leaves are dried and then burned for use. Her aunt told her that the fresh herb is too rare to obtain, but she should at least remember its smell. This is the dried, hallucinogenic herb. This is much more dangerous than poison. It weakens a person's will and then takes advantage of them. It torments people with hallucinations and auditory illusions. Under the effect of this herb, if you just say there's a ghost, a real ghost will immediately appear before your eyes. At this time, Eugene was being tormented by the herb, but Eugene realized it. But for Eugene, who is proficient in dark runes, mental magic should be completely ineffective. Eugene still underestimated their methods. The only way to save Clisha now is to use the dark rune. But he was afraid of being exposed. In the end, without a second thought, Eugene thought that if he killed everyone living in this place, wouldn't he not have to go through the trouble of hiding various things? On the other side, Clisha used a fire rune to burn away the smell of the herb at the scene. The power Eugene seemed to have just gained from his rampage was also relieved. Eugene didn't expect her skill with the fire rune to be so high. Seeing the man about to run, Clisha told them forced labor, illegal cultivation of crops, unlicensed construction, and even drug abuse. You have to be arrested obediently. The man was seen taking out a glowing stone and throwing it at Clisha, and it exploded. Finally, the man threw out more explosive stones. At this time, Satana outside also began to face danger. But a water rune user was no match for him. He told the woman his magic is time-stopping magic. Suddenly, an explosion was heard. The woman was very flustered and told him to release the spell. She told him it's a self-destruct device. This cave will collapse within minutes. They must leave immediately. The crowd inside was in chaos. Clisha wondered whether to save people first or stop the explosion. At this moment, Eugene appeared and told her to leave this place with him. He said he could use the dark rune to sever all of their consciousnesses, and then they could leave together. They were people who deserved to die anyway. Clisha didn't expect him to say such a thing. She believed criminals should be judged by a judge. If I let them die, what's the difference between me and them? Eugene thoughtfully draped his clothes over her and said, "This is the last time I'm helping you. After this, goodbye, Clisha." An oppressive feeling was felt, and everyone was turned into puppets by Eugene's dark rune. Clisha didn't expect the Grand Duke. This was the Grand Duke's true power. So with Eugene's help, she led these people out in an orderly manner. Clisha escaped and successfully reunited with Bartil. They prepared to look for Satana. At this time, Satana had already collapsed on the ground. The room was filled with Satana's malpower. The woman explained that all the explosives in this cave were equipped with magical detonation devices. Before the explosion, Satana used a time-stopping spell just in time. Satana told them to leave quickly because his Mel couldn't hold out for much longer. Bartil said to let the crowd leave first. The woman said she could help guide the followers, stating that she was not so ungrateful as to forget a favor. Before the explosion, Bartil used a wind rune to block the blast wave. Bartil remarked that the power of this explosion was truly not to be underestimated. Then, Bartil told her that his power was completely drained. Clisha didn't understand how he had suddenly become so weak. At that moment, the two looked up as if they had discovered something. It was Puff. Clisha was thrilled. Puff, however, seemed exasperated, having finally found its master after searching for so long. Afterward, it led the two to a successful escape. However, the shockwave from the explosion caused an avalanche, trapping them on the mountain. Meanwhile, Persa had already arrived at the foot of the mountain. At the same time, with Satana's help, Persa was learning a great deal about the situation. Satana suggested that the lord of this territory might also be an accomplice. Persa told him that the lord of this territory was Bartil. Satana hadn't expected this to be related to his younger brother. Persa asked how he managed to control his Mel when it went out of control. Satana explained it was all thanks to Clisha. Normally, using Mel to that extent would have left him bedridden for about a week. But just a brief contact with Clisha quickly stabilized him. He had wanted to marry her and bring her back to FIA as his bride, but she already had a spouse. Besides, Persa doesn't permit polyandry. So, Satana was planning to persuade Clisha's husband to immigrate to FIA as well. Persa stated that he himself was Clisha's husband. Upon hearing this news, he was instantly dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Clisha and the others, trapped on the mountain, could only wait for rescue. So, Bartle thought of a way to cure their boredom. This was the perfect opportunity for the partners of the Northern Grand Duke Research Society's joint creation contest to create their work. Clisha remarked that it would be even more perfect if they had tools. Bartle took out the paper and pen that Satana had left behind earlier to their great excitement. Bartle was the first to think of a concept. In the northernmost part of the empire, within an iron-walled fortress built in a crevasse of eternally frozen snow, lived a handsome young Grand Duke, said to have eyes colder than ice and golden hair more brilliant than gold. Having voluntarily withdrawn from the struggle for the throne to become the empire's guardian, he became the noble sword of protection. It was said that his sword contained the flow of heaven and earth and could even slice the sky. Countless beautiful and noble ladies tried to win the Grand Duke's heart. Then one day, a woman like the warm sun, capable of melting the coldest ice in the world, finally appeared before him. Clisha just thought it was too cliché. This kind of theme is outdated. Why would the Northern Grand Duke have blonde hair and blue eyes? And what's this about a sword of protection? Clisha thought he should listen to her idea instead. In the northernmost part of the empire, within an iron-walled fortress built in a crevasse of eternally frozen snow, there lived a powerful and beautiful Grand Duke, said to have eyes redder than blood and hair blacker than ebony. For some reason, he had become an avenging demon, slaughtering his enemies day after day. But in reality, he had grown weary of the endless revenge and rage, enduring the darkness alone each night. This became his daily routine. Then one day, a person with dazzling blonde hair and clear blue eyes appeared before the Grand Duke. After listening, Bartle quickly interrupted her. He thought this was disrespectful to His Majesty. How could it turn into another genre? So Bartle felt they should rethink it. This gave Clisha a sudden flash of inspiration. It made her think of a very good theme. Imperial calendar year 638. One day, more than 10 years after the Serbian War, the fourth emperor of Persa died at the age of 27. The fact that this emperor, who ruled over 5 domains, lost his life merely due to an avalanche on Mount Jiddu sparked countless suspicions. Some even pointed to the last prince of Serbia as the mastermind behind the death. Subsequently, the Northern Grand Duke, who inherited the throne, attempted to seize everything his late imperial brother possessed. Endless wealth, supreme honor, and power, and he didn't even spare his sister-in-law, the Empress. Persa looked at their plan and thought they were writing a treasonous conspiracy plot. Bartle told his imperial brother that it was all a misunderstanding, claiming he had been opposing her writing such a theme. Clisha stated that creative freedom cannot be infringed upon by anyone, not even His Majesty the Emperor. Persa did not refute her. Instead, he told Bartle that none of this would have happened if he hadn't brought Clisha along. He ordered him to answer honestly whether he truly knew nothing about the matter of the manor. Bartle admitted that of course he knew. There were suspicious activities on the territory. I did intentionally let it be, but in the end, didn't we round them all up? Finally, Persa told him to handle it and come back after he has dealt with the mess in his territory. And so, Clisha returned safely to the foot of the mountain. Clisha looked at the clothes Eugene had given her, wondering if they would be friends or foes the next time they met. The turmoil of the Church of Happiness was an unprecedentedly complex royal incident for the Persa Empire, but it was quickly resolved through active intervention. However, because it involved Persa's nobility and occurred during the National Foundation Day festivities attended by many foreign guests, the matter was handled as a state secret and quietly resolved. It wasn't until several years later that the truth of the incident and its aftermath came to be known. The true identity of the Bishop of the Church of Happiness was a former duke who had been demoted to a baron when the ducal house was annihilated. It is said that he harbored resentment against the current regime and founded the cult known as the Church of Happiness, manipulating public opinion to tarnish the emperor's reputation. He also illegally sold weapons to neighboring countries, provided armed support, and had long been trying various means to weaken the nation's power. It is said that all this information was voluntarily confessed by the bishop and high-ranking members of the Church of Happiness. It's heard that due to severe trauma from a dark rune, they are currently in a state of mental derangement. In any case, the Church of Happiness, which had spread throughout the empire, has been successfully eradicated. As for the problematic matter of Persa and Clija's marriage, it was merely leaked by a royal official who was a follower of the Church of Happiness. It has been determined that the Church of Happiness was not involved in the error on the document. So, Clija once again found herself at the divorce table. This time, Clija was determined to successfully get a divorce. Then, Persa asked Clija what qualifications an empress should have. Clija stated that an empress should have the ability to care for the empire's people and must also have the ability to protect herself, because people will come for her life from all directions. It would be troublesome if she couldn't even protect herself after her guards leave. Persa believed that having powerful maternal relatives could also cause trouble. If the empress were subject to interference from a duchy or the Jade Kingdom, the imperial authority could be shaken. But he also couldn't marry a commoner and diminish the royal family's legitimacy. Therefore, a noble lady from a weaker house will be more suitable. Clija excitedly added that one must always prioritize Persa's safety. This made Persa reveal an inscrutable expression. Mile knew that look. It was definitely the one that appeared when he was hunting. Clija is not only a high-level user of fire runes and immune to all poisons, but she also comes from a minor noble family and has a strong sense of patriotism. Therefore, Persa rejected the divorce and instead agreed to let Clija become his wife.